Energy Boutique with your energy and ascension forecast for Sunday, March 10th to Saturday, March 16th. So last week, we were wrapping up some cycles. We are wrapping up the last week of Mercury being in Pisces energy because, of course, Mercury, ruler of the mental plane, is moving into Aries energy here tomorrow on the 9th. We are wrapping up this last week of the Aquarius focus that, of course, we've been under this new moon in Aquarius cycle for these last couple of weeks. This last month, we are about to dive into the new moon in Pisces, which is the last lunar cycle for this old astrological calendar. So we, over this last week, have really been observing, really been kind of seeing the greater, grander picture of the options and the opportunities available to us because, of course, that Aquarius energy is very visionary and wants us to do better, wants us to improve our particular life situations. This is also the last week that Venus was in Aquarius energy. She is preparing to move into Pisces energy here on the 11th, which means that we are about to dive into a very bumpy weekend. I spoke about this in last week's Ascension forecast. We're going to talk about it again because what we got going on here is, first of all, yes, Mercury's moving into Aries energy here on the 9th. So if you're tuning in, and you're live in the chat here Friday evening, first of all, I want to thank you for being here. Secondly, we haven't experienced this energy shift as of yet. Now, not that I want to jump into a rant and rave before I even get through the rundown of the energy shifts taking place here this week, but let me just say this. Today has been very challenging. The last couple of days have been very challenging because Mercury is nearing the final degrees of this Piscean energy, which of course is an ending and a closure before we jump into a brand new cycle. The depressive narratives, the lack of hope, the lack of faith, the lack of trust, the lack of inspiration, the lack of motivation, the lack of F's to give are very high on the list because we're coming to this ending of cycle. When I say to you that when Mercury moves into this Aries energy, that you're going to feel totally different in your mental plane, you're going to have a different narrative, different perspective, different understanding, different ideas, goals, visions, and dreams, I need you to just trust the process. I know you're probably saying, nope, there's no way. I'm too far into the darkness right now. I'm not going to be able to shift overnight. Well, okay. If that is a belief in which you want to align with, then yeah, you might be a little bit prolonged in the energy shift actually realigning within you. However, if you want to have hope and faith and trust the process, then let me just say that when Mercury finally closes the door on this Piscean energy and dives into Aries energy late Saturday evening, you will feel that dramatically. And we're definitely waiting for that because at this point, Mercury is leading the charge. He's the first one to enter into Aries energy, kicking off this brand new cycle for Mercury, which means that our headspace is going to clear. We're going to have a better outcome, better narrative, better dialogue, better idea, better goal, better vision, better dream as we approach this brand new astrological calendar. This equinox energy that will reset the scale. So the sun is following behind Mercury at this particular point, which means that our headspace needs to get right before we're going to be gifted with the physical energy, the green light go ahead to take action and make moves upon whatever it is that we are sorting out, clarifying, defining in our mental plane over the course of this next week. Okay, so we have the new moon in Pisces taking place on the 10th, very early Sunday morning. This is the beginning of the end. There is a moon guide out there. There is an astro forecast for you to listen to. Would highly, 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 highly recommend that you do the work, that you get in alignment, that you tap into the energies, that you unpack your emotional baggage to lighten the load, because that is the whole point of this Piscean process, so that we enter into the new zodiac calendar as light as possible, not carrying in emotional and mental and karmic baggage from the past. That's why we do the work. That's why we do the shadow work. That's why we unpack. That's why we are going through the darkness, through the funk at this particular point in time. There's a meaning, there's a purpose to it. Please do the work. So we have this new moon in Pisces that's going to be a tipping point, a breaking point for all of us. The next day on the 11th, Venus will be moving into Pisces energy, attempting to close her time through the zodiac wheel. There is an astro forecast for this event as well. I still would recommend that you download the Pisces Season e-guide. You flip to this particular chapter because this weekend is going to be a bumpy ride, and therefore there is a lot for us to unpack. After we get this back-to-back-to-back energy shift out of the way here this weekend, we will be building towards the first quarter moon taking place in Gemini energy. That's going to be popping off on the 17th, which is actually a day outside of what this forecast is supposed to cover. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, of course, the energy between a new moon and the first quarter moon is kind of revising, readjusting, and building towards an action point, towards a decision point. With Mercury now in Aries energy, that is going to become very clear to us. It is going to be very important to us to pull the trigger on a choice point, on a decision point, on a path, a plan, a strategy. That happens, that peak energy happens on the 17th. What happens on the 19th? The sun moves into Aries energy, the equinox happens, we open up a new karmic cycle, we open up a new calendar. That's the only reason why I'm bringing it up. Let me just be very clear. 16th, 17th, and 18th are going to be very difficult days. Why? Because there is always a test, there is always a challenge to see how well we can actually manage our energy in order to walk the walk and talk the talk. We're in the year of 8. That's what this whole year is all about, is stepping into our power of being able to have control over our mind space, over our emotions. We are always rocked. We are always tested right before we jump into a new karmic chapter. That equinox energy rebalances, resets the karmic scales, resets the battlefield, the playing field, whichever way you want to look at it. But you best believe that we are triggered, we are activated prior to these very important shifts in energy, as the dark force entities want us to be at our lowest point, our weakest point, our heaviest emotional and mental point, so that we don't jump timelines, we don't evolve, we don't skip chapters of potential, which we all have the ability to do if we stay in the right mindset, stay in the right vibration and frequency. So when I say to you, 16th, 17th, 18th, going to be super, super challenging, you have to understand that you are going to be challenged in ways that you cannot react to. You just have to observe, okay? You just have to call out the glitches, the programming, the attempts to trigger and activate you in the worst kind of ways. You have to understand that we're in the level of the video game where we are beating the big boss, right? And you know that the game is going to pull out all the stops in order to prevent us from having a high energy life bar going into this battle royale. Okay, that's my, you know what, if I'm already starting with the video game analogy, you know it's got to be serious, you know it's got to be real. That's what I'm going to leave you with. Okay, so that was just a review of the energies of last week and this week. We're going to jump into a little bit more rants and raves here as I get going. But before I get too far into things, I just want to check off a couple of things on my homework list. First of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for liking, for sharing, for commenting, for dropping beautiful emojis in the comments section below, making it a very beautiful place to scroll through. Definitely very, very kind to the eyes, and I thank you so much for that. I want to thank those of you that have jumped over to Patreon, tested out a free membership to go back, listen to February's zodiac forecasts. Many of you have kind of tested that, realized, the very valuable information there. Maybe I should start subscribing to the monthly zodiac forecasts as they come out. I want to thank those of you that have upgraded from a free member to an actual paid Patreon to access all of that VIP content, not only because I appreciate the love and support, but also because I appreciate you wanting to do the work, you wanting to stay ahead of the energy, you wanting to stay ahead of the game. So for those of you that have come over to Patreon, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. To my existing Patreons, I just want to apologize once again for the lack of content that I put out this week. Wasn't because I didn't try. I actually sat down and did 2 one-hour rants that when I sat down and edited it, I deleted them on the spot because I no longer felt that way. Literally within a couple of hours, I was listening to myself rant and rave about whatever it is that I was ranting and raving about. And I thought, well, geez, I don't know. I don't really feel like that anymore. My mind has shifted since then. I really don't feel like that is an authentic part of me to be sharing right now, so I deleted it. The next day, I tried to do another revised rant in that same kind of space, in that same kind of concept. And as I was editing it, I thought, no, don't really care to share those ideas either. And I guess that is the downfall of not only being in Pisces season, but with Mercury being in that Pisces energy as well. As we've been talking about, it's very hard to talk with Mercury and Pisces energy because we don't want to talk. We just want to be silent. We want to live in our inner realms. And it's been very difficult for me to get a lot of this information out and do my daily energy forecast, let alone any of the other kind of bonus content that I try to put out for my Patreon members. It's been very difficult. And I seen that full stop in the 2 hours in which I wasted ranting and raving about things that I didn't even feel that I aligned with in the editing phases. So I did actually do 2 episodes of Marley Rants. It's just they hit the garbage bin long before I could share them with anyone else. And the astro class that I did, I don't know, it feels very Mercury retrograde-ish. I was doing screen share to kind of capture, you know, the different parts of the chart that I was trying to point out and whatever and what have you. And after a 45-minute sweet little astro class that I thought very, you know, highly of, I was excited that I actually was able to get the words out and actually piece it together to be able to share with y'all. And what happened? Went back and my screen recording froze up probably 5 minutes in. And so I spoke for 40 minutes with a frozen screen. And honestly, I was just defeated. So I deleted that too. So yeah, I have had a lot of wasted time, wasted energy this week. It has produced nothing. I feel very bad because again, another week has come and gone where I didn't kind of release the content that I was hoping to release. And I am just anxiously awaiting for this particular energy to kind of move along so that I can get my brain back and technology back and actually have some thoughts and some ideas that don't change as rapidly as they did this week, and therefore actually create some content for my Patreon. So for those of you over on Patreon, super, super sorry. And for those of you here on YouTube wondering what the F I'm talking about, all of my astro classes, all of my Marley Rants, all of my VIP content, my energy medicine content, all of that, I am not sharing here on YouTube. And reason being, YouTube will shut me down for a lot of the things that I have to say, especially in my Marley Rant. So for those of you that listened to that episode 1 asking when episode 2 will be dropping, I don't know that you're going to see episode 2 or 3 or 4 all the way up to 16 because that's how many episodes we're in. I don't know how many of those I'm going to be able to share on YouTube just because I talk about some spicy things that will definitely get me kicked off and flagged in ways that I just don't need here on my YouTube channel. So again, I know I sound like a broken record. I am trying to make the rants and the astro classes accessible on my website as like a smaller membership for those of you that don't want to jump over to Patreon. But like I said, tech is not working in my favor right now. I'm slow as molasses running uphill in the winter time at this point in time. I'm low on motivation, low on F's to give, and so it is still a work in progress. So I thank you for your patience on that. As I previously mentioned, there is a moon guide available for download. We want this new moon in Pisces to be as easy, as gentle as possible. I say that with a lot of sarcasm and hesitation because it probably will do none of those. That's why it's very important that you stay ahead of the energy, you stay ahead of the game, you know what to expect so that you don't get derailed and actually create and manifest a situation out of dark wounds instead of higher self-inspiration. That's the whole point of this breakthrough point that the new moon in Pisces is definitely going to offer us. If you haven't downloaded your Pisces season e-guide, you can still do that. We are in a very turbulent weekend as we close off and bring a finality to this last year. We are very, very excited and anticipating this new karmic chapter, this new astrological year, this new cycle that we're about to dive into on the 19th. Couldn't come any sooner, I would say, for a lot of us that don't have patience. Literally cannot come fast enough. But we're moving through a very bumpy, very turbulent weekend that, of course, the Pisces season e-guide can help you kind of navigate, can kind of help you unpack what needs to be unpacked to lighten the load as we move into this new karmic chapter. And just feel the need to kind of mention it again. I have now kind of broken up my 2024 astrological calendar in downloadable pieces per month. So if you want to download the March calendar and understand all the different energy shifts and stay ahead of it, I would definitely recommend popping over to my website and downloading March's individual calendar. Okay, so that is all the things that I needed to talk about on my homework list. Let's jump into the Ascension symptoms for this week. So as I mentioned, we're very low on energy. Well, Pisces season, we need to slow the physical body down in order for the energetic and soul body to do its thing. We are going through this recalibration, this realignment, which is basically braiding our energetic soul self in with our physical selves. And we are not yet through this braiding process, which means we're still very, very divided, fragmented in our energy, fragmented in our connection to our higher self. We will kind of expect over this next week, especially once we get the new moon in Pisces behind us, that there is going to be more stability offered to us. There's going to be more, I'm going to say, connection to our higher selves, to our intuition in a way that we haven't had in a very long time. We're also going to be renewed in our inspiration, in our excitement, in our passion, in our desires. Now, I know many of you, myself included, are sitting here going, yeah, right. There's no way. We're too dark. We're too depressed. We're too low on F's to give. There is no motivation. There is no excitement. Nobody cares about anything. Well, if that's the way that you feel, then welcome to the club, because that's the way you're supposed to feel as we anticipate this major shift in our mood and our attitude that is coming with this new moon in Pisces. So we will be gaining momentum. It's hard to believe, but once Mercury moves into this Aries energy, where you're definitely going to have a different mindset, which at this point in time, the reason why we feel so lackluster, feel so low on hopes, wishes, and dreams, on inspirations, on motivations, on F's to give, is because Mercury's in Pisces, which is like the most depressive energy that we could possibly be in, because we have to sit in that shadow part element in order to be revived, renewed, resurrected with a new mindset that is coming with Mercury moving into Aries energy. The downside to Mercury moving into Aries energy is that we're going to have verbal vomit. We're going to be a little bit too much of a straight shooter, and we can be very, very anxiously and impulsively jumping into things that we need to actually give more time, energy, and thought to. But outside of those particular cautionary notes, the vibes are going to be exactly what we need to bring our mental plane back to life, to clear that mental fog, to clear those mental blockages, and start kind of piecing together a lot of the things, the confusing aspects that we haven't been able to make sense of. And so, there is a reason why we are low on hope and faith and trust in ourselves, in the universe, and the greater, grander plan at this particular point. It's because we need to be broken down, beat down, so that we wave the white flag in surrendering, because that's what Pisces energy is all about, accepting where it is that we're at, as uncomfortable and ugly as it may be, so that we can integrate the particular parts of life, the particular parts of ourselves that we're not so fond of, that we don't really enjoy as much, so that we can align, again, recalibrate, again, braid our soul self with our physical selves, and bring us out of this darkness, out of this funk, with a renewed sense of hope, of faith, of trust in ourselves, in the universe. Now, a little bit of that will be felt after we get through this new moon in Pisces, but realistically speaking, we're really going to feel renewed and resurrected once we move into Aries season. That's the whole point. That's why when I say, we dive into Aries season and we're reborn, we're resurrected, we're rebirthed in our soul and our spirit, that's why. Because the breakdown that happens in Pisces season that we're currently going through gets lifted, essentially. We start seeing the light in a different way, in a different perspective, in a different understanding, from a different set of eyes. And we start kind of running towards that light with everything that we got. And right now we don't have much. So it seems like a far-fetched idea that we could actually change so drastically in, not even 2 weeks? It seems impossible, but we do it every year. We just have to continue to be patient. We have to continue to just do the work, kind of surrender to the thoughts, the ideas, the emotions that are coming up upon us, crashing upon us, suffocating us, if you will, making us feel like we're drowning, because we will receive that deep, deep lung full of air. We will understand that the land that we haven't been able to see, being this far out in the middle of the ocean with the waves crashing upon us, We're able to see land now, and now we're actively trying to move closer to the land being Aries season. So we are going to be in for a little bit of a time warp. I know we've been experimenting with time warps. Things have been going very fast, and then all of a sudden we have 2 days where literally time doesn't move at all, and then time moves fast again. Again, time is a very elusive thing, very man-made construct, if nothing else. But the time warp is going to be even more amplified because of this new moon in Pisces energy kind of being layered with Mercury moving into Aries energy. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a recreational drug analogy. We are on methamphetamines with Mercury in Aries energy. Everything is fast. Everything is go, go, go. Let's do, let's think, let's decide, let's do, let's go. Okay. But we are on some serious sedatives. Okay. We are just like body stoned, laying in the couch with the best kind of green that you can have, still with this Piscean energy. So again, physical body stone, inner realm methamphetamine, okay? The time warp of the inner processing of our soul and our spirit overlaying our physical form and getting rebraided into this physical form is going to feel like we are going light years ahead of where we're actually physically at. Meanwhile, our physical form is moving like a sloth, moving like that cold molasses running uphill in the middle of winter time, okay? And so the conflict here is, of course, one part of us is just, just hitting that red line. If we were a car, that little needle's just pinging off that red line, but the car's at a standstill. We're brake standing at this point in time. We're just making smoke. We're just creating confusion and more additional fog that's going to really hinder our perspective and our awareness of what's going on around us. We're just sitting here spinning at this particular point in time. So the time warp is going to be very, very real. Now, last week I talked about how the physical body is taking a hit just because we need to slow the physical form in order for the energetic body to overlay and do its realignment, do its recalibration. But the physical body is going through flu-like symptoms, or it maybe feels like you went too hard in the gym. Like we're feeling not just muscle tension, we're feeling like nerve endings. We're feeling super hypersensitive to our physical form, to all the injuries that preceded us, to any dysfunction taking place in our physical form. We're feeling that tenfold. And right now we're having a severe intensity of pain, physical pain, okay, in our neck, in our lower back, and in our wrists. That's where the majority of the energy is kind of, I'm going to say, blocked at this particular point in time. Now you're going to say, I don't know, having a lot of pain in my knees, in my legs. I'm having restless leg syndrome. I'm having muscle cramps. I'm having Charlie horses and tremors. That is due to the fact of the reprogramming going on in our lower back. So our lower back is that's our root chakra. That is Plutonian and Saturn energy of the programming, of the conditioning, of our survival, because that's all our body is programmed to do, is survive. The survival program is conflicting with the energy that is manifesting in our physical form to understand the steps that we need to take in a new path, in a new direction, to not only grow and heal and evolve, but just pursue a new mission, new path, new purpose. Our higher selves, our soul selves, our spirit selves know that we need to kind of prepare ourselves to hit the ground running when we can reach that land and get out of this ocean and start kind of stabilizing in the areas that have been just so out of whack, out of reach, out of our peripherals. And so what we're getting here is the lower extremities are kind of building in the action energy that is needed, but the physical programming of our physical survival system and our physical form just wants us to stay where it is that we're at. So again, we're having conflicting energies, and that is manifesting in the lower back with sciatica, with cramping, with bowel and bladder tension and spasms as well. Equally, we have this neck pain because, of course, the neck is at the top of the spine, if you will, the base of the head. And the energy blockage of going through the recalibration through the 33 vertebrae of our spine, which is where the, let's call it Kundalini energies, need to rise up through in order to pop off in our pineal gland and have that milk and honey actually be released, which trickles down the spine once again and plants a seed in our sacral plexus, which essentially is the new cycle of intention, the new passion, the new desires, the new dreams. We're blocked there right now. Why? Because the rebraiding, the recalibration, the realignment of our soul body versus our physical body is not done yet. So there is this new insight coming. There is this new download of intuition, of vision, of goals, of dreams coming, but it's stuck in our headspace. We're not being able to communicate the vision, the goal, the dreams that our higher self wants us to pursue with the adjustments needed in our physical body programming in our lower back, keeping us in that survival mode. And there is this disconnect. Our legs are just kind of like ducks. You know how you look at a duck and it looks all peaceful and calm above the water, but below the water, their little feet are just a scurrying. That's us right now, just trying to get in alignment with the reprogramming, not only of our physical body, our survival programming, but with our higher self programming as well, our intuition, our soul self kind of downloading us with the path, the plan, the strategy, the directions that we need to be following to move into this new karmic chapter. So we're feeling that cluster F of energy being stuck in the lower back and of course having its effect on the lower extremities, the pain in the neck or at the base of the skull, the highest point of the spine, because again, the energy blockage there yet, not really ready to rebraid, recalibrate, realign. That will be coming after the new moon in Pisces as we gain momentum towards the sun moving into Aries energy, triggering that equinox, but we're not there yet. And the wrists, well, we've been trying to activate the palm chakras because we are needing to step into our power. The power that we need is just as much in the receiving ability as it is projecting ability. That is right versus left hand. Right hand projects out power and control out of our bodies. Left hand brings it in. That's the receiver energy. And so we've been trying to bring our palm chakras online. Some of us have been successful and then they gotten turned off again. You can tell that by the energies, by the pain, by the injuries, I should say. The injuries and the pain and the broken nails and the hangnails, all the things going on with our fingers and our hands, those are indicators that the system isn't working as well, as gracefully, as fluid as it should. And so there's energy blockages that are manifesting in our wrists and our elbows and our shoulders, but our wrists mainly because the energy, again, being blocked at the base of the neck, coming down our shoulders and getting locked. We're not able to bring energy in. We're not being able to project energy out of our hands, our left versus right, because the pain, the trauma, the energy blockage, the tension is being kind of stopped at our wrists. Now, when this recalibration is over, when the rebraiding is done, when the realignment is, to its fullest completion, we are going to feel that tension dissipate. We are going to feel those energy blockages actually be removed. It's literally going to be like maybe you crack something and all of a sudden you feel that surge of energy running through your physical body in the way that it should. Maybe you just wake up one day and realize that that coffee cup isn't weighing 500 pounds like it did in the previous days. Whichever way it manifests, there's going to be I'm going to call it spontaneous amount of healing. Again, we're in Pisces energy. We're being purified and cleansed of the old, of the gunk, of the heaviness, of the weight. And when we are actually, seeing that energy be removed, those meridians in our bodies, that chi, that energy is just going to flow at such an easier type of way that it's going to feel amazing. We're going to feel renewed. We're going to feel revived. But again, we're still sitting in the heaviness. We're sitting in the blockages. It will be over the course of this next week and taking us into this new astrological calendar before our bodies, our mind, our body, our soul is fully functioning in alignment with one another. So, let's talk about the existential dread for a second. Now, I know one would say, well, the existential dread, isn't that, not giving enough and not being inspired and not being excited and not really caring? Well, yeah, that's part and parcel of it. But the existential dread right now is putting a lot of people and again, I'm going to get censored, so I'm going to say it as nicely as possible, the want, need, and desire to not be here anymore. Now, some people are taking it a little bit too far. We know in Pisces season that there are a lot of souls that want to return home, and a lot of souls take it essentially in their own hands in order to buy themselves a one-way ticket back to source. The uprising of the want, need, and desire to not be here anymore and to actually put yourself in a situation, circumstance, or scenario where you could bring a finality to this particular life mission. We have to avoid that at all costs. Please understand that you need to reframe this existential dread in understanding that this is just an indicator that the ego avatar in which you've been operating and living in now needs to upgrade. Now has outgrown this particular mission, this particular path, this particular storyline, and therefore a death, an ending, a closure is needed in this self in order for us to move on to a higher version of our vibration and frequency, reach new potential in our soul's mission, our soul's expression, which is coming with the equinox energy being reset. Okay, but when you're in a dark place, when you feel like there is nothing good, when you feel like there's nothing good to live for, when you're not excited about anything, when you don't care about anything, when you literally are in the deficit of F's to give, even about the important things, the survival programming of the physical body automatically takes you to the dark place of understanding that there's only one way out and what it is that you should do in order to buy that one-way ticket. We want to avoid that at all costs. Please, please, please understand that if you choose that one-way ticket, you are doing a huge disservice to the soul mission in which you signed up for, and that the contract that you will now have to honor in a new way is going to be doubly as hard, and it's not worth it. You literally just need to change who it is that you are, how it is that you're operating, what it is that you are pursuing in life in order for the ego death that needs to take place in Pisces energy long before we enter into the new astrological calendar. That is what needs to be done. It does not mean that you're physically removing yourself from this earth plane, from this particular mission. That is what we want to avoid at all costs. We need to understand that this is an indicator that you have outgrown this particular role, that you've outgrown this particular part of the ego avatar personality, that you've outgrown this particular part of the potential of the mission that you had essentially reached without even knowing it. You have outgrown it, and ending a closure has to happen, and therefore the ego that you've been operating in needs to go, needs to die. That is the only part that needs an ending. The resurrection will happen to our soul and our spirit when we move into Aries energy. Will not feel as dark and dismal as you probably currently feel right now. Okay, the Pisces season, it is the darkest point in the chart. It is the darkest, deepest point in the shadow work that we could find ourselves in. And that's why many people find themselves in a very desperate situation where they just don't want to continue. They just don't want to go on. I get it. I get it. But please, please, please understand that you cannot let the programming, their survival programming of your physical body to take you into a place to perform an action that you cannot unperform, that you will pay very, very dearly for. Once you get over there, you return to source and you understand what this particular energy was supposed to teach you and how you interpreted it in the wrong way, what you did because of that incorrect interpretation, and how you're going to have to make, let's call it, retributional payments in your next soul contract to make up for this particular loss. Okay, we do not want that for you. So I get it. I understand that we're craving a sense of peace. We're craving a sense of contentment. We're craving a change, a transformation. We do not want to do this anymore. Whatever this may be, we don't want to do this anymore. It's been played out. We're done. We're exhausted. We want something better. We want something more. And we will get that. Even though we don't understand what that is right now, we will get that. We will get these feelings removed. We will get those wants, needs, and desires fulfilled. We will get that in just a couple of weeks. Yes, it's going to be confusing. Yes, it's going to be hard to understand because, of course, we're moving into eclipse season and we're moving into the pre-retrograde shadow period of Mercury. Once we dive into Aries season, once that equinox rebalances itself and gives ourselves new karmic chapters to actually work with. However, the darkness, the existential dread, the funk that we've been sitting in will become less and less. We just have to be patient. We just have to understand that this is a dark point in our soul's evolution. This is a disconnect from our body, our soul self, in order for those two particular energetic bodies to upgrade before we come back together. The recalibration, the realignment, the soul braid is happening as we speak. We just need to give it a little bit more time. Now, you may have noticed that there is a major change that is taking place, whether we can see it or not, or feel it or not. We can see it because our sleep patterns have changed. Our sleep content has changed. Our sleep experiences have changed. And every single time that we experience that change in our dream state, it is just an indicator that we need a little bit more time here in the physical in order for those changes to actually manifest here in the physical realm. So I'm going to say, like, I know sleep is all over the place and I know dreams have been all over the place, but one thing I think we could all agree on is that it's different. We don't know how it's different. We can't really put our finger on it, but something different has taken place in that dream realm. And of course, the dream realm, the astral realm, is just an indicator of, it's a little bit more progressive than our physical realm because everything is slow as F here. So it takes forever for whatever is going on in the etheric realms to actually manifest here in the physical realm. But we know that the minute that we get an indicator in our astral realm or our sleep realm that there is a change taking place, it's just a matter of time, hopefully a short period of time, before we're going to see that major change and transformation take place in the physical realm. One thing that is changing in the physical body is our cravings, our taste buds, our diet. Now, here in Pisces season, you're either, I'm going to say, emotionally eating, trying to fill a wound, fill a void that isn't going to be fulfilled by food, or you are starving to death, but not really starving to death because the sensation of starving isn't there. You're just not really in the mood to eat. And that's fine, even when you are finding yourself in a state of figuring out what you want to eat. You're probably turning your nose up and making a very disgusted face to a lot of the meals that you once very much enjoyed. Again, recalibration, realignment means that we're leveling up, means that the vibration that we're able to actually harness in our physical vessel is a much higher vibration and frequency than what it previously was, which means that it's altering our central nervous system, which means that it is changing our wants, needs, and desires for the sensory type of experience that food typically gives us. We are changing. Everything is changing. And change, although there is a huge part of the population out there that will just resist change for all it's worth, but yet complain every single day that they hate their lives. So, it's time to shit or get off the pot. We are either going to double down and put all of our bets on change, regardless of what that may mean, or you're going to double down and just settle in life for what it is that you've already got, because those are your two options. And let me just tell you, even if you do choose to settle, things are still going to change because humanity is changing, the collective is changing. So the only choice you really have is whether or not you want to roll or be dragged. We are going to have increased air bubbles, increased gas. Now, whether this means that we're burping it out or it's coming out the other way, it is still going to be an uncomfortable situation. Why is that? Because underneath our rib cage, that is where our solar plexus is. That is what essentially aligns the energetic body with the physical body. And because we're going through a recalibration, a realignment, because we're halfway through this soul braid into our physical form, we are changing our will. We're changing our power. We're changing our focus. We're changing our energy. We're changing our inspiration. We're changing our motivation. We're changing everything. And that has a major impact on our solar plexus, which means that in the physical body, there's going to be tension in the heart space. Venus moving into Pisces, that's a whole other heart activation jam because we have a lot to release, a lot of surrendering, a lot of acceptance, a lot of integration to do when she moves through her Piscean energy cycle. But the solar plexus intensity is going to create a disruption in the digestive system. Again, our central nervous systems are popping because we're going through this realignment, this recalibration, which means that all of the nerves in our digestive system are alive and well. They're going through their wants, needs, and desires to change as well. And there's just going to be an overactive gas situation that will have us kind of twisting and turning, trying to crack our back so that we can burp or expel that gas in a different direction. There's going to be a lot of cramping involved. Again, our digestive systems are going through a major upgrade as well. So we want to pay attention to that increased gas and air bubble. I should have probably included this when I talked about the sleep changes, but I suppose we could incorporate this in our day-to-day lives as well. The temperature fluctuations that take place while in Pisces season, typically cold feet, but these warm waves of emotion crash over us as well, is kind of triggering a cold sweat situation. Now, you could be having cold sweats at night. I know myself, these last couple of nights, I've just had an absolute water park going on in my duvet covers. I know that's just like a soft and squishy type of depiction that you probably didn't need to have in your mental plane about me, but sweating your ass off in a frozen state of a cocoon in your bed is definitely a thing. And whether this is just happening in a sleep state or it is taking place in your physical realm as well, I know I've had a lot of women we reach out and just ask if this was an ascension symptom, or if they had to have room to be concerned about like premenopausal symptoms or whatever the case may be. Of course, you want to do your due diligence with any kind of medical concern, but the matter of fact, the nitty gritty is that the cold sweats, the temperature fluctuations are very much a Piscean thing for us right now. This is part of the purge. This is part of the cleansing. I want you to think about when you get sick with the flu, you run a fever in order for your body to fight off that virus. Essentially, we are running hot and sweating because that is the best purging detox that our body can go through in order to, again, expel a lot of the emotional weight that we are unconscious of, that we need to get out of our physical form to lighten the load before we dive in to this new astrological calendar. Now, I want to talk about the anger, the bouts of emotion that aren't coming out so happy, so I'm going to say so chipper. Well, what do you expect in Pisces season with shadow work? That's my first thing. Like when I have people ask me like, oh, I've been angry lately. First of all, I think to myself, does anybody even listen to my energy forecast? Because we've been clearly talking about Mars being in this Aquarius energy and having spontaneous bursts of anger and frustration absolutely tip the scales in order for us to figure out what it is that we're feeling restless and not empowered enough to have control over. Secondly to that, I have been talking about this weekend, Mars and Uranus squaring off. I'm going to recommend, if you haven't already, to take a listen, actually listen, open your ears, actually listen to what I have to say with the energy forecast for Saturday, March 9th. That is when we are in a direct aspect of Mars and Uranus in the square. But we've been building towards this for, I'm going to say, the past week. And even prior to that, we've had Mars in this Aquarius energy trying to get this sudden bursts of energy, whether I'm going to say excitement and inspiration, although I don't know too many people tapping into those energies. Most of it is restlessness, anxiousness, and anger. So when people say to me, why am I feeling so angry? Like I said, first of all, I wonder if anybody actually listens to my forecast. Secondly, I wonder what I could do better in order to highlight these particular transits that we talk about well in advance for, so that you're not wondering why you're angry, why you're yelling at your kids, why you're kicking, imaginable things in the air, why it is that you're just looking at yourself in a state of disgust, why it is that you feel guilty after it is that you feel angry. All of the answers are there. So again, these bursts of anger, these bursts of dark emotion, that is shadow work, my friends. It is not only being activated under Pisces season, but we have Mars squaring off with Uranus. And again, I go into super depth and detail in my March 9th energy forecast, because that is when the energy is at its potent direct potential. But we have been building towards this for this last week. Thus, the increase in anger and frustration, thus overlapping with the new moon, which is the dark phase of the moon, which means that the dark emotions have to come out in order for us to cleanse and purify our soul and spirit for a reset, a resurrection, a renewal to take place. It's all there. And again, I just don't understand, I literally don't understand the overwhelming amount of questions on the same topic and theme, when I thought myself, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that I covered this. I think, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I don't spend enough time communicating how these energies manifest, but it's very defeating for me personally when I get all these questions about why do I feel angry, why do I feel so dark, why do I feel so hopeless, why do I feel so this, like I don't know. Did you listen to any of the forecasts? Because it's all there for you. Did you download your zodiac forecast? Did you download the Pisces season e-guide? Did you download, all the resources that I put out there so that you're not supposed to be surprised at when these emotions actually bubble to the surface? I don't know. I don't know what else I can do, guys. But anyways, if you're wondering why it is that you've been a piss pants and an angry little, minion over this past week, this is why. Let it out. Get it out. Let it teach you what it needs to teach you. The heavier emotions that many of us don't like to experience are the most important emotions that are the greatest messengers that most people just want to avoid. And I don't get it. I don't know that I'll ever get it, to be honest with you. Like, this is shadow work. And I don't understand why people don't understand what shadow work is. Shadow work is not fun. It does not bring up good thoughts and feelings. It's not supposed to. You're not supposed to run from it. You're supposed to lean into it if you want to grow, if you want to evolve. So if you're angry, get clear on what you're angry about. Write it down, because I can guarantee you it's not as big of a deal on paper as you're making it in your mind. Secondly to that, you write it down, you're going to be able to see very clearly the trigger, the activation of your anger actually rising to the surface for your acknowledgement and therefore your integration. And you're going to understand what needs to change. It's a clear path on figuring out your problems. So again, I'm going to invite you to double down, to bet on yourself, to do the work. Okay, guys, that was my little anger, frustration rant. Because like I said, I just bang my head against the wall most days. I read through, comments here on YouTube, my DMs. I go through my Patreons. I go through all of these, just repetitive questions, asking what's up with the energy? Why do I feel so mad? Why do I feel like I want to die? Why do I feel this? Why do I feel that? And I'm thinking to myself, why doesn't anybody listen to the content in which I put out? Does nobody download their moon guide? Does nobody download the e-season or the e-guide? I don't know what else I can do to make it as clear as it needs to be so that you're not taken by surprise by some of these emotions. Again, this is the whole reason of why I do energy forecasts, so that you're not taken by surprise, that you're not doubling down and giving the survival egoic programming of the physical body the upper hand. So please, if you have any suggestions on what I could do better or how I could communicate these particular, aspects in a better way so that we don't have a whole group of people asking the same question, experiencing the exact same thing, I would be very open to what it is that I could be doing differently, because the last thing that I enjoy feeling is anger and frustration and feeling defeated. Because again, I just want to keep everybody ahead of the energy. I want you to stand in your power. I want you to understand when these triggers and activations come up that it is for your betterment, for your evolvement. And I just am not seeing the whole kind of comprehension that I was hoping that people would have at this particular point in the awakening. And this is why I'm going to continue to say, please do the work. Okay, guys, I'm leaving it on this particular note. I thank you so much for tuning in. I thank you so much for sitting with me. I thank you so much for showing up for me, but mostly I thank you for showing up for yourself. We have a very bumpy ride ahead of us here over the course of this weekend. It is going to be leading us into better days, into lighter days as well. So again, lean into the darkness. That's the only way you can appreciate the light. Do the work. Listen to all the resources. Download the guides. Do everything that you can to empower yourself so that you're not allowing the physical programming of your physical body to lead you into a new path and direction that is built out of triggering traumatic wounds. I thank you so much. I send you nothing but love, and we'll talk to you soon.